Well, welcome to Found in Focus. I'm LoriesHart, and I'm so glad you're joining me. I wanted to share a few thoughts with you after a conversation with Cheryl Nembhard. Cheryl was on the podcast this week. She shared her amazing story, traumatic story of abuse in her childhood, how she navigated through that, how it resulted in some lies that she believed about herself, and then she found Christ, and the transformation in her life is simply amazing. And as I was listening to Cheryl share her story and thinking about those who their past is filled with pain, trauma, abuse, and so often that can be the thing that defines us, right? We can be defined by what's been done to us. Listen to what Psalm 139 says, and then I'm going to read this to you out of the Passion Translation. Verse 5 says, "You've gone into my future to prepare the way, and in kindness you follow behind me to spare me from the harm of my past." That really stood out to me. I was like, wow, I've read this psalm so many different times, but I'd never paused on this verse. You know, the psalm is reminding us that God knows everything about us, our future, our past. He's always with us. We can never escape his presence. But this reminder that God actually is, one version says, you hem me in before and behind me. It's an implication that God is protecting us from what may come in the future and what has happened to us in the past. God actually is protecting us from our past. Like when you think about that, you could be defined by your past. It can determine the trajectory of your life. As Cheryl said, she could have been an angry, bitter person the rest of her life from all the stuff that happened to her. But she has allowed God to redefine her life. And I think this is the answer to what we do with our past, that God is the one, when we give our past to him, when we give our pain, when we give our hurt, when we give our trauma, when we open our hands and say, I'm no longer going to be defined by that. The verse said, in kindness, in the kindness of God. It's not that those things were kind or those things were good, but in God's kindness, he comes behind us and he spares us from the harm of our past. The psalm goes on to say that he lays his hand upon us. I believe this is what happened to Cheryl and what can happen to you. Are you defined by what's happened to you by your past? Allow the Lord to lay his hand upon you, to remind you that he will protect you. He will actually help you heal from your past. He will allow that your past doesn't have to speak harm over you anymore, that you are free of your past. You don't need to be defined by it, but you can be defined by the fact that God loves you. He is with you. He is calling you to move forward with him into the person that he's called you to be. And that is the message of Found, that everything that we are looking for in our life, we can find in our identity, our value and worth in Jesus. So don't be defined by your past. Be defined by the one who heals your past, and you'll be able to move forward today. That's Found in Focus.